Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk Made in Abyss episode. Oh man, the number is escaping me. I assume it's episode 5. If I am wrong, I apologize. The title in the video will be proper. Anyway, this episode, I'm really excited to talk about it because one, we're in the Abyss. It's a beautiful place to be, you know, besides the monsters. And in this episode, we actually end up kind of exploring or continuing the exploration on the thematics that the world in Made in Abyss has created, or not thematics, but I guess the culture, the mindset that the world has created. So I'm pretty excited to talk about that because in this episode, it continues getting fleshed out, and just the thematics alone is just really impressive because it's presenting a specific culture and you can understandably justify why it's at the place it is when it comes to the way that the characters interact with the Abyss and the notion of death. So I'm pretty excited to talk about that. So let's just get into the episode. Where do we begin and where do we start? Let's talk technicalities first. We start at somewhere in the Abyss, I think somewhere near the second layer, and then we end off getting deeper inside of the second layer. It was kind of odd for me because I saw where they were in between those 2 points as still pretty much the aesthetics of the first layer. I imagine it's like one of those threshold zones, like where you're slowly kind of working your way into seeing the full brunt of the second layer. Regardless, we end up in the second layer afterward, and that's cool. So in terms of where we're going, where we go and where we started from, we made some pretty decent progress. And in between those points, we had that big stop where we were pretty much just recovering and resting and getting more exposition after Reg fired off his incinerator, which was super cool. Actually, to talk about that, in terms of the narrative, you know, when you're having that situation and Reg is there and he's getting destroyed by those birds, I'm thinking like, yeah, this is one of those moments where he's gonna need a beam. There's no other way to save Rico. He's gonna have to come up with a super powerful beam. And then that's what happened. It's like, all right, that was cool. And then I don't remember, did we see this in the first episode? I don't recall. Anyway, it's just really interesting how if it was in the first episode, how I just completely forgot about that. And now we see it in this one. You know, that's actually more my fault. If it is in the first episode, then I'm stupid and I forgot about it. But it was still cool to see it here. I appreciated it. And Rico's overall mentality on that beam, very, very consistent with her character. Very consistent. Yeah, that girl, man. And now let's talk about Rico because she is the one who's given me the most to talk about for this episode. You know, Rico's naivety is still something that bothers me. It's still something that I see, and it's like, you're so optimistic when objectively speaking, this place might kill you. Like, if you didn't have Reg, you would not be going anywhere. Like, you're cheating. Everyone else who build up the experience, you're cheating. You're not doing much besides just offering the little morsels of knowledge. And you know, that's fine because this is part of her character. But I just wish that her naivety could be checked. But it won't happen as long as Reg is saving her. And even then, even when she is caught in a really bad situation, she's still going to be really optimistic about it. And it's just like, I want to see you break. And you know, that's not a nice thought to have. You realistically shouldn't want to see your main characters break, but for Made in Abyss, I feel like that would be justified. No one spoil it for me if she does break later on. I don't want to hear about it. I want to be surprised. I want to be able to enjoy that moment. But you could giggle if you want, but I don't want to know. Anyway, back to Rico. It's just there's this. The thing is, because we know that Made in Abyss has the people of that world, they have such a sophisticated view on death because it's such a normal part of their life. When you have Rico, it's like you have this character who's ultimately aware of death, who knows about death, who logically and mentally understands it, but I think this is a character who hasn't experienced the threat of death being so close to her. So this is one of those issues where a person could say that they are totally prepared for it, but then in the moment when it actually happens, like the horror of death itself and like the process of dying gets to them. And maybe this will be what happens to Rico. Maybe like the threat of death will actually make a mark on her and she will actually feel the fear for her life and she will actually have a full just breakdown. Now, the thing is, Rico is showing that she might be more mentally strong than that scenario needs her to not be. Because she experiences the corpse weeper, and man, cool animal. I really thought that was really neat. Cool animal. The corpse weeper. I feel like I was about to go into baby there, but yeah, the corpse reaper, and it's a really shocking sight. But this girl still has the whole to, even though she's sweating a bit, she does manage to maintain logical thought and doesn't get caught up with it, right? And that ultimately, does it give them an advantage? It'll give them an advantage later on. Like, they didn't just walk out into it, like they got into a compromised situation, but that was kind of unavoidable because you wouldn't have expected the corpse weeper to be there. But when it comes back to Riko, you know, like, it's already showing that she has a bit of mental strength with it. And then when she's actually eating the monster, this is where the rationale behind this world like gets more pronounced, because the way she's rationalizing it is fully just a survivalist way of doing things, right? The girl is just saying like, yeah, you know, this is how cave raiders live. We just become strength for future cave raiders. And man, that's such a wow. That's a perspective that does relinquish individuality to a point. Like, there is a collectivism kind of undercurrent in that mentality, but it's still slightly disturbing because she's eating this monster with full recognition that, yeah, possibly previous cave raiders became nourishment for this monster. In eating this monster, we are eating their energy and their life as well. You know, that mentality is a mentality that doesn't pop up that often. You know, there's usually some more sacredness to the idea of other humans, right? But this is a mentality that's strictly coming out of a lifestyle that is surrounded by death, and a lifestyle that sees the abyss as the pinnacle of your life. And so, you know, it's interesting to get this perspective so fleshed out, so nuanced, so just kind of jarring in some regards, kind of just interesting as well. So in terms of thematics, Made in Abyss is pretty freaking awesome. I love seeing this perspective. I love seeing the way the author interprets this perspective. I ultimately really enjoy it, but now I kind of want to see, is Riko's mentality as a child going to play a part into the possible horrors that she's going to face in the future? Or is she at a point where she's just that mentally strong? Is living in the abyss, or in a society centered around the abyss, enough to make characters this freaking strong? Or, you know, Riko might also be an exception, because we have in the previous episodes Nat, who does understand the full ramifications of the abyss. Is Riko just fully indoctrinated in the culture, is the next question. Ultimately, I want to see her break. I want to see this kid cry like a child. But then again, Riko's also the kind of person that just can stand around naked and understand it. She's super mature. She's exceedingly mature. It's actually ridiculous how mature she is. But yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much my whole talk on Riko. Overall, awesome part of Made in Abyss. I think this might be my favorite thing of it in terms of the passive details that are going on in the show, because it's just that cool. After that, you know, the episode is still very valuable. There's a lot of other things going on. There's like little comedy moments with Reg and his penis being recorded and documented. There's a little, oh, actually, yeah, the whole other note about the notebook, how Riko just wants someone to find it so her legend can live on. This girl is already thinking about what's going to happen after she dies. Like, Jesus Christ. But anyway, not the point. You know, that was pretty funny. And then I think there was another funny bit. There was the incinerator. There was Riko standing around naked. There was Riko vomiting. Oh yeah, Riko vomiting. So that was actually really interesting, how just ascending even a few feet already triggers the abyss curse. Like, that's cool. That makes it just terrifying. And I really appreciate that the author did go to show us the vomit on Riko's face. I applaud that. Show how gross this situation is. Show us that it sucks to be in this place. Like, yeah, I'm into it. I respect that. And then after that, the next big thing that's really popping up in my mind is that when we go into the second layer, truly just how it works there and what people are thinking. It's interesting to find out that the curse of the abyss gets a bit more bearable if you are further away from the center. And it's also interesting the habitats that are formed, because the main shaft of the abyss is where the nutrients are being poured down from the force field. All of that, like, this author, when he's making this story, he did think about quite a few details when it came to the abyss's structure. So when you have that, that's just something you come to respect. Now, One thing that I also found interesting was were the monsters that we saw in that second layer. Notice how they have like longer arms. That's cool because you see how they have to get around this area. Having longer arms does help navigate the inverted trees. So again, this is another cool little detail of how the environment is affecting the people around it and also the monsters that live in it. After that though, we go back into full-on plot and we end up going towards the lookout, and now we've met with a white whistle. This is the disturbed white whistle. What's going to happen next? I don't know. The narrator makes it seem really ominous. We'll have to see. And you know, actually, speaking of the ominous tones that these episodes tend to end on, it's going to be really jarring if we one day have a really tough episode and then we go into that really happy ending song. Like, that's just going to be such a mood whiplash. Holy. But then again, mood whiplash is what you could argue Made in Abyss is doing, especially when you have the pretty and the beauty of the Abyss, in contrast to the terrifying monsters and the terrifying realities that navigating the Abyss shows. Puts in store for the characters. Now let's see, anything else to really say about this? No, I can't think of anything else. I feel like I had something in my mind, but it kind of slipped away. Oh yeah, Reg keeps going with his little plot. There's symbols popping up on his helmet. There's Reg's memories being brought up to some degree. So yeah, Reg keeps going with his plot, but it's not that interesting yet. We're just getting bits and pieces. It hasn't climaxed. It hasn't given us a big just wow moment yet, but it'll probably happen in the future. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for me. Overall, I really like this episode. I really like the whole thematics on death and how the cave raiders see it. It's really interesting. And yeah, cool. Guys, let me know what you thought of this episode and let's end it there. Thanks for watching. Till next time, I hope you have a great day.